The first thing, again, the biggest thing I want to go over is there have been some updates to Google this past summer. That's the main reason why I'm just going to go over stuff today. But one thing is this is the agenda or the link to the document. And I can't remember if I showed you bit.do website or not, but I'm going to go ahead and just do that first. A lot of times I will share a link to a document or like an agenda. And I used to always use this URL shortener. The other thing I don't like about it is it is case sensitive, and sometimes the letters or just makes a URL that's not real user friendly. What I like about bit.do is that you can customize what your URL is. So, for example, I'm gonna go ahead and do this here, and I can share it with you. That way, you have access to all the stuff I'm sharing today and our agendas throughout the year. So, if I go to the bit.do website. Okay, again, link to short, which again, we have a bunch. There's tiny URL. There's a bunch of these, but this is kind of what I prefer now. So I'm gonna highlight again this document, and remember now I've already set the settings that anyone at Channel County has the link can view it. So make sure you have your sharing things set correctly. So I'm gonna highlight this, Control C, go back to here, Control V, and then basically I can put down. I can put down what I want it to be. So this is Galore, right? So I'm just go ahead and put, I'm gonna put Google Galore. So I can customize it that it makes sense. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so then I hit shorten, and if it hadn't been used, bingo. So this is the URL, Control C, to this agenda now. So if you type in, again, you don't worry about the HTTP bar, just put in bit.do/Google Galore, this should pop up. Anybody want to test it out for me?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
So Google Galore.
Just put bit.do/Google Galore.
I can't find that.
Don't.
I can't find the agenda.
Well, that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Put in bit.do Google Galore, then you'll be able to see it.
Oh.
Yeah. That's what I just made a URL for. I want to show you how you can customize it. So, and this I think was shared before, but anyone with the link can see it.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I don't know if I didn't share it to you specifically with your name. Well, hold on.
So in my search drive.
What's that now? Now this is the same document I shared with you last year. I've renamed to 1718. Again, what I'm doing is just showing you how you can give a URL to a new document by customizing it with bit.do. But you technically, it should be in there share with me. You should see this.
I didn't see it in share with me, but when I put that in, the bit.do Google Galore,
it did come up. And you can then move it wherever. No, just put it in your URL up top.
URL.
Yeah, if you put bit.do Google Galore up here in the Omni box, it will show up. And then you should see your little folder to the right?
Right.
Then you can go ahead and add it to your drive.
Yeah.
Make sense? Yes. In other words, just put your so you put your bit.do up here, and then Google Galore, enter. That will bring up the agenda. Bam, there it is. And then what you can do is your little folder pops up to the right. What you can do then is move it wherever you want to in your own drive. So, like for example, I did a Google class for Laura Fairfax the last 2 nights. So I made my agenda. I called it LFCC Google, and so people just know bit.do/LFCC Google. If you're all doing one on Power School, you can easily do SCPS Power School. You just name the URL that makes sense to people. Because if I do this Google shortener thing here, it comes up with it's a random. But see, that's case sensitive. So if I don't put a capital T, it's not going to work.
Right.
So the bit.do thing, you can make your own URL up, okay, and make it that it makes sense to people. So I do that a lot when it comes to sharing stuff. Okay. But again, what I did is I made sure that I went up here to share and made sure that anyone with a link can find and view it. I just did with Channel County Public Schools people. Okay, clear as mud.
So this is, I just added this to my drive.
Yep.
But whoever makes changes in it will still.
You'll still be able to see it. Yep, same thing. Same thing as if I went in there and did the whole share thing, Deb, and I put in your name here. Same thing. Yep, same thing. All right. All right, so that's just bit.do. Want to share that. All right, so Google Doc changes. Revision history is now called version history. And I like this change for this reason. Remember before it used to be called revision history here. You can go through and see it like so. In other words, it shows it over here on the right, and you can go back to previous versions. And if another thing that's kind of changed, you used to have a link down at the bottom where it would say show detailed, I think, changes.
Yeah.
But if you hit the arrow here, it actually breaks it into little small increments of things that change. Okay, but what I like is you remember when it comes down to how it names previous versions, it basically just gave you a timestamp. It gave you the date and the time that it basically happened. What I like now is they added this. Version history, name current version. So it's kind of like save as in Word. So in other words,
have the past and the
right, yeah, in other words, you can't keep track of everything. But for example, let's say I finish a document and I want to give it a specific name, okay? Galore agenda, I can put down September 13, 2007. Now I would have a date stamp, but in other words, I hit save. You'll see it's named in version history. So now what I can do is I can come up, version history, see version history, and you will see now I have it's called Galore agenda. So in other words,
so if you were trying to keep track of, like, you're meeting with the committee.
Yep.
You wanted draft 1 and draft 2 and draft 3.
You can name them.
You can name them so it'd be easy.
Exactly. And think about this. In other words, and I'm guilty of this. A lot of times what I'll do is every time I start a new year, and I finally got smart, for example, this signage sheet. I used to make a Google sheet for 15, 16, 16, 17, and finally I started just using the tabs at the bottom. But the other thing to talk about, you can actually have a document. If you're like going up from year to year, you can actually just use the exact same document and just name the version. You know what I'm saying? For 2016. So in other words, you can always just go back on the same document instead of having multiple documents.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So it's pretty cool. You can just go back to your vision. So in other words, I might have Galore Agenda 17. I might have one called 16. Right. You with me? And I can just keep the same versions on the same document. For some people, it's like letting go of something. They like to have the different ones. But they talk about how you can actually just save having a bunch of documents stuck in folders. You can just use one document and just have named different versions.
Well, and that would be easier because I know we have gone back and forth in that very thing of sometimes wanting to say, well, we had this. And I'm like, okay, what was that we had? And so then you're looking at what day was it we were meeting,
right?
And what was this? So that would be
so you can name exactly if it's a certain date you're working on, whatever the topic is. So naming it like this, I think was a great.
So where was that again? It was
same thing. In other words, you go to file. And it used to be called revision history. Now it's called version history.
Right, but then where was it?
Name current version. So you have two options now. Yeah. So this takes you back to what the traditional thing was. But here you can name a current version.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I can go in and say, okay. Yeah. See how it remembers Google Galore agenda? Mm-hmm. I can say, okay, new. And hit save. And again, now, see, I didn't really make any changes. So I'm kind of curious if it just gave me a new one or if it just renamed it. See, just renamed it because I didn't make any changes. Make sense? Mm-hmm. If I would have made some changes, it would have meant me make a brand new one. So I like how it does that too. Because I didn't make any changes to the document, just let me rename the thing here. So that's kind of new. So it's kind of like, again, it's kind of like the save as option reminds me of. A little minor one here. In other words, one way you can share with people, if you remember, you can go editing rights, suggesting, or viewing. The suggesting, remember, that's kind of like the whenever you do the track changes in Word. Before, you had to actually, if someone gave suggestions, you had to individually click on them and accept them. I don't have any here showing, but if I did have a bunch of them, you can now just click and accept all of them, just like they used to have that option in Word. Okay. Again, I'd be honest with you, I've never used this option. I basically just always use comments when I read people's comments. But remember, you can do suggestions where people can give suggestions. They can click and change spelling and all that. Again, it's just like Word. It shows the changes they made, but you have to accept them. And again, if they made 8 changes before, you have to click on each one of the 8 to accept them. But you'll see if you ever use this option, there is now just select all of them and it changes. So that's another new thing they added. Add-ons included in new Google Doc templates. So this is kind of cool. If you remember, you can add add-ons in Google Docs and also in Sheets. Can't put them in slides, but you can put them in forms. So what they've done is, if I go to new and I go to a template, which you will see now, first of all, they've added a whole lot more templates, which is nice. But if you notice, some of the templates have add-on underneath of them. So in other words, what they've done is kind of taken it to the next level. Is that the only one for Google Docs? I can't remember. I think there's more for Sheets. Yep, there's more. But for example, this one here, all right, here's a report, MLA. So if I click this template and I want to use it, of course, it will bring it up where I can edit it and make it mine. But also it pops up. There it goes. It's not making a liar out of me. What this does is it basically says, hey, you want to use EasyBib to make the bibliography for this. So add to docs. So basically brings up a suggested add-on in order to use a document. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, so you just click add to docs, and what it's doing is it puts the add-on up here that you can use. Okay, and so it's pretty cool. And it's supposed to have them for Sheets as well, I believe for forms as well. So kind of neat. Google Drive. All right, I discovered this. This is kind of neat. If I go to Drive, my Drive, and I've found myself doing this. Sometimes I'll have a document that I would really like to have in 2 different folders. You know what I'm talking about? Well, we can do that now. Woohoo! Well, let me get in. So for example, this usage report, let's say. So in other words, this is in Discovery Education right now. So if I click on this and I hit Shift Z, this pops up. So I can go to my Drive and say, okay, I also want to stick this thing into 2017-18. I click Add Here.
Whoa.
This is a game changer, isn't it?
Yes,
So this is so it's in Discovery Education. Now let me go to 2017-18. And there it is.
Yeah.
So I have 2 places now. Now, if I change in one place, it's one document. See, the thing you got to remember about Drive is Debbie just had her money's worth. We're done. The thing, well, because see, the thing is, you got to realize Drive, everything in Google, really all it is just shortcuts. These are all just links. You know, a lot of times you see these things and thinking, well, that's the document, but really all these are just links because it's an online world. So now you can have it at multiple places. You can have it 5, 6, 7, 8 places, whatever. But it changes it everywhere. Exactly right. But I have found that where it's like, well, I've got it here, but I kind of like to have it here too. So you can do that now. So again, you select the file, but you can also do it for folders. You hit a folder, Shift Z, and that box pops up. And all you do is go where you want to put it, and this becomes highlighted in green.
So is there then something that tells you where else you have it?
Well, this is a good question. So if I go, let me go, where was the one I did? Right here? All right, remember how you have this details thing up here? If I go to details, this is activity. Look at that. It shows both of them are in.
Oh,
Life is good. Life is good. Life is awesome. Life is awesome.
Awesome.
We got ourselves a wireless keyboard and mouse, and we got our freaking folders anywhere and files anywhere we want to put them. Life is good.
Wait, where's the details thing?
All right. Well, first of all, if you highlight the file, Abby, you'll see the little.
Okay.
But the other, but right click. I mean, remember, right click does it. View details. 99.9% of the time, right click. Right click will get you where you want to get. But remember, there's 2 tabs here, Abby. There's the details, but there's also activity. So this tells you the activity when you upload and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But this is right here. Tells you there's a lot of information right here.
Yeah, there is.
You can add a description. You can add a description. Okay, it tells you whether it's shared or not, but you can also add a description. Now, sometimes a nice little description helps out a lot, especially as you get older.
No.
It comes in. It comes in. There you go. Thank you, Deb, for saving me. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Deb, for saving me. I appreciate
I
that.
just found out I moved all my stuff to Google on September 18th, 2013.
We're gonna have a celebration. That's 4 years ago. Sharing expirations in Drive. I don't know if yeah, this is an option here. I forgot this was something new, but let's say, for example, I'll go ahead and use Deb's. We talked, but say I share this with Debbie Swecker. This only works what this is expiration sharing. It only works if you're sharing with someone and can only view. Okay, I'm going to take it off here so you'll be able to edit. But I do can view. Okay, then I hit. I'm not going to notify the people. I'm going to do okay. Okay, which that's the thing is you gotta basically give them rights first. But what I can do is I can share a document with someone, and if they are view only, I can go here and see a little clock pops open. So, well, it's what I do is I can click and I can basically give Deb only a certain time to view it. So, in other words, just say I'm gonna give her 7 days, or I can give a custom date. So, in other words, I can basically send out and say, okay, Deb, take a look at this document. Okay, you have until Friday in 2 days, and you're going to lose access to it. So you can turn off access to the file if you want. But it's only in view mode. If you give a person edit rights, you can't turn that on. It's just for viewing only. So you can kind of put a expiration. It's an expiration date. That's what it's called that. So I'm going to get rid of this, Deb. Okay, that little clock is what shows up. And and I think I pointed this out, but I want to remind everyone again about how you can, whenever you're sharing a document with somebody, and I remind special ed people are sensitive documents. I highly recommend you do this. But down here, once you have a sharing setting, whether it's edit, whatever, but see, you can prevent editors from changing access and adding new people. Because, for example, if there's a student situation or especially special ed, yeah, you may share it with someone, you give them editing rights, but you don't want them to be able to change access and give it, or God forbid, give it to somebody else. So you're kind of protecting them from themselves.
Well,
and then this here this stops them from being able to download it, print it, and copy it. So it really, you're sharing it, but it really limits what they can do. And I've had that before. People have shared something with me, and it's more been on the intellectual property side. Basically, they can let me view it, but I can't download it and start using it. And it's because they want to protect their own intellectual property, which makes sense. But I know a lot of times people just don't even look at these boxes here. But if I'm in the special ed world, and I know, Deb, some of the things you deal with, I mean, sensitive matters, I don't be hesitant to check those boxes and kind of limit them. I mean, people sometimes just unintentionally, do that. Okay? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just thinking of to have done that in between meetings when we were first doing the PBAs, because people would go in and change or download it somewhere else. I mean, they would do off the wall stuff that we were learning Google at the same time.
Yeah,
we were learning that.
They make copies and stuff like that. I think I'm sure I've shared with you all about the old Boomerangs, and some of y'all might have Boomerang for mail or calendar, but they've added something new for Boomerang for mail. If you use it, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I love it because it's a fact, and I'm very guilty of this. If I go to my mail, I'm very bad that what will happen is whenever I have my mail up, of course I pin it, but every time a new email comes in, a little blue dot pops up on that tab, and I'm so bad when I'm doing work, if I notice emails coming in, I go to the dang tab and just check too often. You know what I'm saying? Again, now you might not have these, but what you can do now is pause your inbox. So it stops any email from coming in. So it just stops it. So in other words, you can concentrate and you just know new emails coming in, and then you can restart it whenever you want to. Now, if I click on pause, it basically will bring up this window. Okay. Oh, geez, I wasn't logged in. Hold on. All right, got it. This window comes up. Now I can turn on an autoresponder that basically says, okay, people, I'm pausing my inbox right now. Thanks for emailing me. I'll get back to you later. So I would just default send them a reply. It's like I'm not open for business right now, even though the email's coming in. All right. Now this is an upgrade to Pro here. We have delivery exceptions. In other words, what you can do here is like exactly. If I can say if Deb Litton stuff is really critical to me, I better get hers. I can put in specific email addresses that those I will, when they come in, I'll know about it. Okay. But then I can also just automatically set my unpause. Like after 2 hours, it will automatically turn off and it'll start coming in. Or I can pick an hour to Monday morning, tomorrow morning, a specific date, so I can do that. But research has shown that the amount of time people lose from working on going back to email And you know what happens? It distracts them from what the tasks are on. They see the amount of time lost, productivity is unbelievable research they've done. So that's the reason they added this option. And so you just pause it and you just realize, hey, I don't worry about any messages coming in for that time while it's paused. But you can just pause and not turn any of this other stuff on. And that's say pause. And then what happens is this button changes stuff right here. See, it tells me your inbox is currently, so I can go out and do my work and all that. I'll never see a little blue dot pop up. I got new mail. I come back and then I hit unpause and then my mail starts coming back in. So it's a little productivity. Again, the same Boomerang thing, of course, it gives you this is the same one that gives you the send later and all those options, remember, which is kind of cool. So they've added that to that same extension, which I like a lot.
So the main purpose of Boomerang is the blue dot?
No. The main thing of Boomerang, most people got it, Deb, for this option here where you can send later.
Okay.
Yeah, you see, I can make emails early and all that stuff. But now they've added this functionality about you can pause it because a lot of people get hung up and go into their inbox too much. And again, I find myself guilty of that. The last thing here real quick is they've also done for forms, they now have, when you go to forms, they now have templates with forms that you can go to. Okay, gives you some pretty neat ones. And the other thing, if I remember correctly, if you're asking for an email address, in other words, when you type a short answer, give me an email address, this did not work for me the other day. But at the bottom there, if I remember last year I showed you, if you type in what day of the week do you prefer to meet, it would automatically put up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You can put them all in there. Well, they say when you type an email now, it will come up and it will put in there email validation. If you remember, I had to do it manually before. And hold on one second. Let me pull it up because I know I've got an example. But I would manually go in. But now, again, this was an update that just came out, so maybe it just hadn't populated our domain yet. But I hope it will. Man, I got a lot of stuff, don't I? Good thing it's unlimited. And I should have a form there. Yeah, basically what you're saying is like, what is your email address? In other words, if I was to start typing that, it should basically underneath the bottom of it come up about you want response validation. Before I had to manually go to here and do response validation and say that the text is an email address, and then I would put in there, please enter a legitimate email. I manually had to configure that. Okay, but now it's supposed to have this intelligent function that once you type email address, it will say you want to add response validation. You just click on it and it does it. And so they type in something that's not a legitimate email address. Basically, they don't put the @.com something. It will say, "Whoa, you sure this is an email address?" But again, it's not working right now. But I'm hoping it's one of those things that are kind of like a delayed rollout, and then it will show up.
Well,
yep.
Are you sure it doesn't automatically do that?
It didn't. When I did experiment yesterday. I know what you're saying. Like it automatically just puts it on there.
Yeah.
I tried it and I typed in a weird answer and it just let me put it in there. So again, when I saw the demo, Deb, it actually showed up in blue. But I did test it out like you just said, and it did work. They now have checkbox grid questions and multiple choice grid questions. In other words, with a checkbox, before you can only have before you just had multiple choice grid, but now in other words, you can set up a grid, and it's kind of hard to see here. But for example, I can now have an example of where, let me make it bigger, where I can, for example, what date and time works best for you. I can set up a checkbox grid where they can select multiple things in there instead of just having one. So that's a new type of question that they have. Okay. And they also have multiple choice grid, which is kind of similar to the grid view before. So now they have two different grid ones there. So that's a new option they have when it comes to form questions. And I'm going over time now. Okay. And then the other thing with forms I really like, I don't know if you noticed this, but now they have for a question, they have file upload. So now you can have a form where you ask people to upload a file. And for example, who was our direct finance person last year?
Cynthia Page.
Cynthia. She came to me and said, Tim, I need a form for caught being green. And remember what it was that she said they must send her a picture of what they were doing or something. Thing is, Google couldn't do that, so I had to go out and use something called Jot Form where they can attach a file. So now they do. So now she could do caught being green, but it basically just says upload a picture of what you're doing. It's being so that's a nice little option. So now you can send out a form and have people upload files and stuff. So that's nice. Okay, and what it does, it magically creates a folder where all the files that are being uploaded come to you on your drive. It is. So that's a new option when it comes to. So that's kind of 3 new things with forms. It's pretty cool. And I think that's all the highlights. Okay? That's it. Thank you all very much.